On 11th of March 2020, the Union Cabinet Secretary announced that all the states and union territories should invoke Section 2 of the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897. Nearly all the states and union territories have followed this directive. It gave them legal backing, a statutory support to the directions issued by the Union Health Ministry, the state governments, the local authority, and all this to contain the corona pandemic. The disease has already been declared as a notifiable disease. Two laws are now therefore applicable to everyone: doctors, hospitals, patients, and even the general public. The Epidemic Diseases Act 1897 and the Indian Penal Code 1860. Coincidentally, both these laws are more than 100 years old and are penal in nature. That is, they give rise to criminal liability, and hence imprisonment is one of the consequences of not following them. The first law, the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897. It was enacted for the better prevention of the spread of dangerous epidemic diseases. A very short act, has only 4 sections. For current discussion, we will discuss only 3 sections. Section 2 of this act empowers the state government to take suitable temporary measures to prevent an outbreak or a threatened outbreak or spread of an epidemic. Once this act is invoked, the state government can give directions and take required steps to arrest spread or outbreak of an epidemic disease. The next section, Section 4, it gives legal protection to every person who has acted under this act or the directions issued under this act. But there is one condition, very important for doctors and healthcare providers. Every act must be done in good faith. The third section, Section 3, it prescribes the punishment for disobeying the orders. Government orders, obviously, under this act. The penalty prescribed under this act takes us to the second law, which is also applicable in an epidemic, the Indian Penal Code. And to be specific, Section 188 of the Code. This section prescribes a punishment of up to 6 months and fine of up to 1,000 for not following government orders. And when we connect this with the Indian Epidemic Act, for not following the government orders under the Indian Epidemic Act, 6 months of imprisonment would follow. But the most interesting and relevant part of this section, Section 188, is in its explanation. The intention of the person disobeying government orders is not at all relevant. He or she cannot take a defense in the court that the results of disobedience was not known. There was no intention to cause harm to anyone or to cause or spread infection. Once an order has been passed by a public servant, by an authority, published and publicized appropriately, every person is deemed to have knowledge of the same. And in accordance with Section 188, mere knowledge of the order of a public servant is enough to attract imprisonment and fine. There are 2 more provisions of the Indian Penal Code that can be attracted in the current scenario. Spreading an infectious disease either knowingly or unknowingly means negligently. The former attracts imprisonment of 2 years, which is far more than the 6 months under Section 188 of the Indian Penal Code, which is attracted under the Epidemic Act. After discussing the current legal framework in India, let us discuss the duties, responsibilities, precautions that need to be taken by everyone: doctors, hospitals, patients, general public. As far as doctors and hospitals are concerned, they are bound to keep themselves better informed about the directions that are coming from the state and local authorities. These have to be followed religiously. In fact, it is for professional bodies, associations of doctors and hospitals, to collect and collate all such directions that come from the authorities, from the government, and then to appropriately disseminate the same amongst their members. For an individual doctor, it may not be possible to collect this information, but the doctor is bound to remain well informed. Otherwise, the relevant provisions, which are penal in nature, may be attracted. Any suspected patient must be managed appropriately according to your own expertise, qualification, and the facilities that you may be having. Ensure that patients who have been referred to another facility do report to the other facility. They don't abscond. Report to the authorities about a patient who refuses to follow medical advice or acts dangerously. Do so promptly. Friends, one need not fear law, especially in such an epidemic. It is there to protect you. We have already discussed Section 4 of the Epidemic Act. Every action that you have taken in good faith, irrespective of the consequences, is immune from legal action. And finally, do take care of yourself. Self-preservation is a supreme law. As far as hospitals are concerned, one very important precaution needs to be taken. You have to ensure safety of your own staff. This is not only a legal obligation, but also an ethical and moral one. As far as patients and public is concerned, everyone has to follow the directions given by the authorities, by the state, by the government. Persons who have been advised isolation or quarantine and have not followed the same are liable to be prosecuted. We see from newspaper reports that a few persons have ran away from hospitals or have been traveling in public transport when they have been advised isolation. Everyone must remember that the legal action for these misdemeanors can be initiated by the state even after months, and the result could be as grave as an imprisonment for 2 years. Thank you.